Good morning, house guests. This is Haunted House Calls. I'm sorry I'm late. Excuse me. But I do have some tarot for you before we get started. This episode is going to be on haunted hospitals or hospital ghost stories. I have quite a few, and I can't wait to hear yours as well. So as always, before we get started, why don't we do some tarot and we'll just ask the general question, what is your message today? Um, we'll do a card pull and then at the end, how about we interpret it and we see what it says and what messages um, you know, it brings to us. How does that sound, guys? Good? Okay. So I have my shuffle down, and I like to flip flop my cards and do some crazy things. So let's get started with the shuffle. That was my bad. I didn't even mean to do that, but I did it. And you shuffle until something says stop or you're just done. The cards will give you its meaning either way. And remember, we go on gut feeling as always. Even in healthcare, we go by gut feeling. Like, it's okay to call an emergency if you feel like you're dying because a lot of the times you're saving your own life. Okay, here's our card pull. We're doing the bottom left corner first. And that is a reverse. I can't see. A reverse 9 of Pentacles. So we'll just do the card pull, and then at the end, we'll see what it all means. Our next one is what is it? A 6 of Cups. I like the 6 of Cups. And as always, I like to write it down, and I have little diaries and stuff. And if you want a free tarot reading, please email angelholdings@gmail.com. Also, if you're interested in private virtual health coaching, please email angelholdings84@gmail.com. And we can get you started on a low cost plan for you since healthcare costs are going up so high. It's not even fair, and I believe in free healthcare. This is a 3 of Swords. I somehow think that these cards are talking to me. Are they talking to you? And like I tell you, I do a pentagram or a star because I have been told by a psychic that I am a star child. I honestly believe her because she accurately predicted the last 2.5 years of my life. Did I say accurately? I mean, so accurately. I told my now ex-husband exactly what was going to happen, and it happened in unexpected ways that you would even think of. So we have the reverse 8 of Swords. And like I said, today's episode is going to be on haunted hospitals or ghost stories of hospitals. All right, bottom right is a reverse 7 of Swords. It's a swordy day today. And then for our last card, we have the 9 of Wands. Okay. So let's get started. And like I said, if you have a ghost story or anything, just, type it in the chat or email it to us. Email your paranormal stories. We'd love to hear from them. But like I said, tonight is about hospital ghost stories. And what do you guys think? Do you guys think that there'd be a high number of sightings or maybe even beliefs? A lot of people or a lot of healthcare professionals do not believe. A lot of them do believe and have some interesting stories. So my my husband is actually a respiratory therapist, and he told me his ghost story, and I will never take an elevator ever again. But he was on assignment in a rural Montana hospital. um he said there was multiple levels to it. I don't remember if it was 2 or 3 levels, but there was levels, and he was forced to take the elevator to get to wherever he was going. And he works night shift, and he says that he gets into this elevator, and he doesn't it's not eerie, it's not freezing cold. It's a hospital, it's always going to be cold, but like not cold abnormally. And then all of a sudden, he hears footsteps running towards him, like fast. And he said that he could not wait for that elevator door to close. And he was so scared that he actually moved to the side of the elevator, and the elevator closed before the footsteps were able to get in. How creepy. How creepy is that? I would be like, stairs, please. I'm even creeping myself out as we speak. So if anybody has anything to say in the chat, please give me a distraction. And it's easy, of course, to get distracted on this paranormal show where we share everything paranormal. And today it's hospital ghost stories. Another friend of mine who this story is centered about around a hospital, where she says, again, she works night shift, I believe, or at least evening shift. And this was late in the evening or at night. And she says that someone had just passed. I don't think it was her patient, but she said that somebody had just passed, and she was in the middle of the hallway, and she saw a black shadow. And the black shadow looked at her, like turned and looked at her, and then disappeared. Like turned and disappeared. Like, oh, I don't know how she's just, it's like almost like he was running into thin air. Like turned and like ran into thin air. How creepy. So I'm so creeped out right now. Okay, and one of my many ghost stories, because I've also worked in hospice, and in hospice a lot of creepy things happen around the end of life, but we will save the hospice stories for a little bit later. But one story I have is I was working in a nursing home, and we had an elderly lady who had dementia problems and wandering problems. And in the unit that I worked, we have like locked doors where like you need a key or a key badge to go in and out, or a code. And that's just to keep everybody safe. You don't want someone with memory problems like going out the door and into traffic or something like that. So we had this little old lady, and she had memory problems, and she was a wanderer. And her trend was is that she would finish her dinner, And then she would come to the nurse's station and she would tell us how wonderful the food was and that she would like her check and she would like to go. So we would tell her, I'm sorry, you live here. The check there, you don't need to pay us. You live here. This is your home. You don't have to worry about it. And she didn't understand that. And there was a lot of times where she would just go for the doors and we would let her because she had nowhere to go. You know what I mean? The doors would lock. So, but at the same time, she would also alarm the doors to alert us that someone was going for the doors just in case they weren't locked for whatever reason. So that was her trend. She'd set off the doors frequently. And then it came one day, and this is the ghost story, of course. So tragically, she did pass away. She did actually, there was a traumatic incident at dinner. And that's why I kind of think that maybe she kind of hung around because the traumatic incident and her energy happened during dinner in a fall. Um, and so after her passing, the doors would go off after dinner and there'd be no one there. And we all thought that it was the patient who used to ask for her check and then go for the doors. Um, Another ghost story that I have is at a hospital that I used to work at. I think every hospital has a ghost story. So the hospital that I used to work at had, I believe, a couple, and one of them was there's a little boy that elderly people would see, and it would kind of freak them out. And it used to be like in the corner, and I think that's kind of like cliche, but that's the rumor. Another ghost story that we all had at the hospital was a patient saw their deceased sibling, and I guess it happened that there was a deceased sibling that passed away prior to that patient, so it was a true patient experience, but they saw their deceased loved one. I'm not sure of the ending of that. I think there's more to the story, but that's still very creepy. Um, oh, and something that I've seen, and I totally may be wrong. Of course, I work night shift. We all get tired, but we also use cameras for safety to watch some of those people who might get, confused or who might be like fall risks or whatever. We don't record them. We kind of just live stream them. So what we do is we get like baby monitors, and we have them on the station because they're kind of nice because they have like that remote Wi-Fi thing. So, but anyways, I have seen what looked like a white shadow standing over someone. And at first you would think that it was like dust or a bug or something, and it was someone that I used to frequently round on, and there'd be nobody there, but in the camera it would look like there was someone there, and it was so creepy. Creepy. And then this isn't a real ghost story, but it kind of falls into the paranormal realm, um, which is I had a patient predict their own passing. So they're basically working with the therapy department, and I guess the therapy department, or he reported to the therapy department that if it all ended today, he had such a beautiful life, and he was very grateful for everything. And then moments later, we were doing a code blue. And it was very traumatic. But anyways, it was, I've seen that happen once before where someone predicted their own passing, and that was with my grandmother. Um, and this is the story slash rumor, and I may be romanticizing this a little bit, but my grandmother wanted to quit dialysis because she was dependent on dialysis. Um, and I believe she wanted to talk to my grandfather about it. And then my grandfather was in the middle of his prayers, and then he was like, "Yeah, yeah, can I talk to you about it? We'll talk about it. I'm in the middle of my prayers." And this is the part where I don't know if it's a rumor or not. I think she said like goodbye, or it's too late, or don't worry, or some derivative of that. And then she had a massive heart attack. And she passed away that night. Um, and it's interesting because the night that she passed, she had over a whole bunch of people. She had her daughters cook a feast, um, all of her favorites. And I guess it was kind of like my abuelita's last goodbye, because maybe she knew it was coming to the end, which is not unusual. I've seen it a lot in hospice. Um, but yeah, that is my hospital ghost stories. What do you guys think? If you have a story that you would like to share, please do email us at angelholdings84@gmail.com. And of course, this episode is brought to you by Off Market Real Estate. If you know anybody who is in the market for Section 8 cash flow homes, please email angelholdings84@gmail.com. Or if you need guidance on how to sell your home off market so you can keep more of your equity, please email us at the same email address. And again, if you're interested in private lifestyle coaching, again, email us at that address. And I hope, house guests, you have a beautiful night. That is our show. Again, stay safe and have a spooky night.